Something in your life has felt slightly off script lately, in a good way. A song hits at exactly the right second. A stranger says the one sentence you needed. A thought crosses your mind, seconds before it happens. Most people wave it off as coincidence and keep scrolling. But what if it isn't random at all? There's a question I want you sitting with while we go through this. Is your life quietly rearranging itself before you're able to notice? Not with fireworks, not with some dramatic sign in the sky, just quietly, underneath everything, getting you ready. Hold on to that. Because by the time we reach the seventh sign, you'll understand why it's the one people can't stop thinking about long after the video ends. It tends to show up right before everything changes. Let's get into it. If it feels like the ground under your daily life has shifted slightly, you're not making it up. A lot of people go through a stretch like this, where nothing changes on paper, but everything feels different underneath. Conversations land differently. Ordinary days carry a weight you can't quite name. You start noticing things you'd normally miss. That's not your imagination working overtime, and it's not burnout either. It's usually the first clue that something bigger is forming underneath the surface of an otherwise normal week. So let's not sit on it. Here's sign number 1. You keep seeing the same numbers. 11, 11 on the clock. 444 on a receipt you didn't ask for. The same 3 digits on a license plate, twice in one day. At some point, you stop calling it a coincidence, because coincidences don't usually repeat themselves this precisely. Folklore around numbers has been around for centuries, and the idea is simple. Repeating digits are a nudge, not a warning. Something in you is paying closer attention than usual, almost like your mind is catching a pattern before your life is caught up to it. You don't need to believe in magic for this one. Just notice that you're noticing. It's the easiest sign to brush off, which is probably why it shows up first. The one right after it is harder to ignore. Sign number 2. Strangers keep showing you small kindness. A door held a beat longer than it needed to be. A coffee somebody else quietly paid for. A stranger who said the exact sentence you needed to hear that morning, then walked off like it was nothing. When was the last time a total stranger changed your mood in under 10 seconds? Some people would call that luck. Others would say it's more like a mirror. That when something in you softens or opens up, people respond to it without either of you quite knowing why. You don't have to overthink it. Just notice how often it's been happening lately. If this one's been showing up for you, sign 3 is going to feel very familiar. Sign number 3. Old doors start reopening. An old friend texts out of nowhere. A job you didn't get the first time comes back around. A place you used to love pulls you back. For no clear reason at all. None of it makes much sense on the surface until you consider that it might not be random. There's a long-held idea that when the past resurfaces like this, it's rarely asking you to go backward. It's asking you to close something properly so you're not dragging it into whatever comes next. Less like déjà vu, more like unfinished paperwork getting signed off. Easy to write off as nostalgia. But the next sign is where it starts clicking into place. Sign number 4. You feel a pull to let go. Out of nowhere, you're clearing out your closet, deleting old messages you'd been holding on to for no real reason. Maybe stepping back from a relationship that stopped fitting a while ago, but you only just admitted it to yourself. If this has happened to you recently, you already know how strong that pull can feel. It's not subtle. Call it instinct, call it timing. Either way, it tends to show up when part of you already senses a shift coming before your actual circumstances do. You're not being reckless. You're making room. This is usually the sign people feel in their body before they feel it anywhere else. And it tends to show up right alongside the one that follows. Sign number 5. You start attracting different people Look around at who's been showing up in your life lately. Different from who used to fill that space? More grounded, maybe. More ambitious. Just different in a way that's hard to put into words. Here's the theory. We tend to attract people who reflect where we're headed, not where we've been. If your circle is shifting without you forcing it, that might mean you're already becoming someone slightly different. Someone your old friend group might not fully recognize yet. And the world around you is simply catching up to who you're turning into. You might even feel a little guilty about it, like you're outgrowing people who did nothing wrong. That's normal. It doesn't mean the old connections were a mistake. It usually just means a season is ending. This one reshapes your life quietly, in the background, without asking permission first. What comes next doesn't feel nearly as gentle. Sign number 6. A wave of small setbacks, right before things get better. A lot of people go through a stretch where everything gets slightly harder. A delay here, a disappointment there, plans falling apart for no good reason. If you've been wondering lately why life suddenly feels like it's working against you, you're not alone, and you're not being punished. Think of it as clearing, not punishment. Old situations, habits, and people falling away to make space for something that actually fits. Even though, in the moment, it just feels like bad luck stacking up, it rarely feels like your luck is changing while you're in the middle of it. Usually, it feels like the opposite. And that's exactly what makes this sign so easy to misread. People assume the frustration means things are falling apart, when it more often means something old is finally finishing. This is the one most people get wrong in the moment, and only understand once it's already behind them. But this discomfort, uncomfortable as it is, tends to show up right before the biggest shift of all. Which brings us to the last one. Sign number 7. A quiet sense of knowing. This is the sign people remember, not because it's loud. It's the opposite of loud. A strange, steady calm that settles in uninvited. A feeling that something is about to change even though there's no proof yet. Nothing you could point to and explain to someone else. Maybe you've woken up with it sitting in your chest for no reason. Maybe you simply felt, quietly, that you're standing at the edge of something different. Even while everything around you looks exactly the same as it did last week, you can't point to a reason for it. There's no news, no announcement, nothing you could screenshot and send to a friend to explain what you mean. And that's exactly why it's the sign people trust the most, once they finally recognize it for what it is. This feeling doesn't show up first, it shows up last. After the other 6 have already done their work underneath the surface, after your mind, and whatever you want to call your spirit, have spent weeks quietly preparing you for a chapter you haven't lived yet. It's less a prediction and more a kind of readiness. The feeling of already having packed your bags for a trip nobody's told you about yet. If you felt this recently, you might be a lot closer to that shift than you think. None of these 7 signs work in isolation. Repeating numbers, small kindness from strangers, doors reopening from your past, a pull to let go of what no longer fits, new people showing up in your orbit, a stretch of setbacks that feels like nothing's working, and underneath all of it, a quiet sense that something's coming. Put together, they tell a bigger story about timing and about paying attention. Real change rarely explodes into your life all at once. Most of the time, it moves in quietly, through small nudges that ask you to pay a little more attention than usual. What looks like a handful of unrelated moments might actually be pieces of the exact same pattern, one that's been forming under the surface longer than you realized. So go back to that question from the start. Is your life quietly rearranging itself before you can see it coming? Based on everything we just walked through, it might already be underway. Not through anything dramatic, but through these small, ordinary moments asking you to look a little closer. Noticing usually comes before anything actually changes, and the people who catch these signs early tend to be the ones who feel ready when the change finally lands. If more than one of these felt familiar, that's not a coincidence. It's a reflection of exactly where you are right now. Change almost never happens overnight. It builds quietly, in the background, through moments that only make sense once you look back at them later. You don't need proof to feel hopeful about what's coming. You just need to stay a little open to the idea that something is shifting, even before you can see the whole shape of it. So ask yourself that question one more time. Is your life quietly preparing you for something bigger? Maybe the answer isn't something you'll get in one clear moment. Maybe it's something you recognize slowly, sign by sign, as things rearrange themselves into place around you. The quiet signs are usually the ones that matter most. And if this video felt like it was talking directly to you, that, more than anything else on this list, might be the clearest sign of all.